I'm probably one of the most technologically impaired people in the building, but it's like, I think about 7 years ago, Claudine made us do podcasts, and I was really sarcastic, and my podcast was entitled Chalk. So, yeah. But I wish they'd shoot the satellites out of the sky, but what would our kids do then? Join or die. So basically, I've jumped in and I've tried to implement some technology, and it's kind of funny. I really don't have to do much because these guys have the savvy to do it. So I was apprehensive at first. Years ago, I used to do a PowerPoint presentation, and myself and Claudine have been doing that for about 5 years, and we changed it up a little this year. We've kind of expanded the mediums or the media that they're using. So I'm going to use these great students of mine today, and they're going to actually present what they did in class. Obviously, they're not going to give you the history lesson, but they're going to show you 3 types of mediums or media presentations that they use, being Glogster, Powtoons, and Reggie Clark didn't come, he was a little afraid, so I'll probably do Prezi for him. But my objective here, and it took me about 2.5 weeks, and it takes about 2.5 weeks, but these kids taught the entire unit. I did not teach the unit, they taught the unit, I was their mentor. I basically jumped in when I thought it was necessary and tried to adjust understanding or whatever it might be. Student-centered. For me, sometimes it's tough to take my hands off, trust the kids, but as time went on, they did a phenomenal job, and you'll see what these 2 groups did. My objective was to create this research-based project, something very similar to what they would do in college. The onus is more on them, and I think as teachers, if we're going to make them college ready, we got to do that. We got to put the research-based instruction in our classroom, especially in social studies and English, put the onus on the kids, and once again, they stepped it up and did a good job. First one here, this is an example of Powtoons, and Dana here and Michaela did a great presentation on transcendentalism. I told them I was a transcendentalist. I definitely am. And I know that some of my English teachers in this classroom have taught this over the years, and the philosophy of transcendentalism, which is our unit, which was called Antebellum America, pre-Civil War, and the reform movements. This was one of the reform movements, so to speak. Girls, in regards to what you did, can you just stop it from time to time? We're going to go beyond the PowerPoint here, and we're going to use what is called a Powtoon, and these guys presented transcendentalism. So here it is. Stop it right there. Can you go back? Okay.
Oh, both of us are down there.
No, you're good. I kind of try to have them emulate my teaching style, which is backwards design. So they actually taught the class. They began with the end in mind, and they come up with this objective at the beginning of the class for my students. So there's your objective: to understand and describe the philosophy of transcendentalism in the 1800s. Then they get into what it is. Basically, they can pause it. It actually had music going on at the same time, so it was kind of cool. And Mrs. Dixon, feel free to jump in. Stop it right there, Dan and Michaela.
I want them to play the music, but
No, you're good. I think of the 3, and I don't want to say this is my least favorite, these guys did a great job with Powtoons. A lot of you are probably saying, well, it's just like a PowerPoint. Well, there's a lot more you can do with it than, actually, they did a lot with it, but there's even more that they can do with a Powtoon. But go ahead, girls, that's what it was. I'm not going to bore a lot of you non-historians, so. Then they get into the transcendentalists and the people who probably a lot of our English teachers touch upon in their classroom. Little humanities here, Emerson and David Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau here, and they get into the books and how literature impacts history and this reform movement. Go ahead, girls. They get into some of the books that these people influenced American literature with, nature here, in regards to Emerson. So, and they are AP students, so we delve kind of deep into American history. Transcendentalists, they love to get back to nature, get in the woods. That's why I thought I was a transcendentalist. For those of you who don't know what it is, I like to sit in a tree for 12 hours and think. So that's what they were doing. Very communal in regards to what they were doing. And I kind of liked her last slide. Go ahead, girls. Get to it.
Well, there's.
Go ahead. These are a couple of the communes that were created. In regards to transcendentalism, these people were trying to escape from the evils of American society at the time, and they separated themselves from the common society. And there's their last slide. So that was kind of a Powtoon, just a brief overview.
And I just want to let you know that it was actually Michelle Ebert that introduced that to us in the district, and we shared that with Jerry LaMonica, who put it out to everyone. So thanks, Michelle, for giving us that.
And feel free to take a look at Powtoon.com while he's talking and get a sense of some of the other things.
Yeah, there's a lot of other things you could do with it, and I'm not savvy enough to do it, but the kids did a phenomenal job with it, and they liked it. A lot of the kids liked it because they actually say it's easy.
Yeah.
So if you're a little apprehensive in regards to what you can do, trust me, they can do it. They fix my computer all the time. Good job, girls. And like Ms. Blake said, when Ms. Dixon asked you to do something, you might want to do it, so I did it. I'm trying anyway here. You guys are awesome. Thank you. A+. I have the power of the red pen. I think my favorite of the three medias here in regards to presentation was this one, Glockster, and it kind of creates like a poster, but you're allowed to implement a few things here. Amanda, what were you doing here? And it's kind of nice because it coincides with transcendentalism. What is this here, you guys? What were you working on?
What, video?
Go ahead, Sal.
What, a video about...
No, don't do the video yet. We'll go to the video last, though. We'll actually let them watch a little bit of it.
Okay.
What was the Second Great Awakening? Go ahead.
It was the religious movement in the United States, which basically said all the churches that existed were wrong, and they had to reform it.
Sure, right? Almost like transcendentalism. Let's get back to our roots. Let's get back to this Christianity thing. And a certain sects of Christianity were born in America. And what they did great here is they got some key vocabulary up here. Restorationalism, millennialism here, and then they get into the actual people who influenced the movement. So you got the Mormons, Joseph Smith, and eventually you got Brigham Young in here, and then they mention one of the schools we have. And the cool thing about this history, Charles Finney, the thing about this history is it was very local. And one of the things Amanda said to me is she liked doing it because when you do the research, obviously when you put the onus on yourself, you have a tendency to really learn the information. And I know most of us know that, but it's nice to hear it from a student. It's kind of cool. The Burnt Over District is actually Western New York, where some of these religions were born, and these evangelistic speakers actually spoke right here in Palmyra, New York, Fairport. And then it's kind of cool because these guys used John Green, the historian. He's kind of sarcastic, but you can actually see him reiterate what these kids presented to the class in the video. Why don't you show them the video? It's kind of funny. It's not very long.
Particularly a religious revival called the Second Great Awakening. This series of revival meetings reached their height in the 1820s and 1830s with Charles Grandison Finney's giant camp meetings in New York, and in a way, the Second Great Awakening made America a religious nation. The number of Christian ministers in the United States went from 2,000 in the 1770s to 40,000 by 1845. And Western New York was the center of this revivalism. That's where Joseph Smith had his revelations. It's also where John Humphrey Noyes founded his Oneida community, in which postmenopausal women introduced teenage boys to sex, and which eventually
a
religious community and evolved into, wait for it, one of the world's largest silverware companies. That's right, every time you take a bite of food with Oneida cutlery, you're celebrating free love and May-December relationships.
You guys are good.
So yes, religious fervor burned so hot in upstate New York that it became known as the Burned Over District. And New York remains the heartland of
So, if I can just pull Reggie's up, I can just show you what Prezi is, and then you guys did an awesome job. And I'll just give you an overview of what Prezi looks like. Prezi kind of interactive. These guys just did this one today for me. She just clicked on the first box. Once again, they began with the end in mind. If you don't know Harper's Ferry, it's about John Brown. And the focus question, probably the most important here. You can go back right here.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
It's very sensitive.
See that? I go back. I'm learning too. Most of us know who John Brown is, but the question in history is he a murderer or a martyr in regards to causing the Civil War and causes of that war. So, and all he did was just kind of like a PowerPoint, a little bit more creative. He gave them their objectives. He went on. Yep, exactly. Goes on to the second slide, so to speak, who is John Brown. Goes on to his third slide in regards to, I think, Harper's Ferry itself. What happened at Harper's Ferry. So my kids are, and I made my kids teach, so each kid had to have some sort of assessment or note-taking device that coincided with the presentation.
Yep, some of them make quizzes, questions, graphic organizers, the kids were the teachers.
They're going to use the College Board website, came up with AP questions. So, and I'm going to tell you, everything had to be approved with me first. It was kind of my way of having a little control because I wanted to make sure the kids got the right information. There's a lot of stuff in AP, and believe it or not, in 168 class days, because that's all I have before their exam, I got to cover a lot of material. So it's kind of hard as a teacher to put the onus on the student, but they did an awesome job. Some of the things they told me they'd like today, I asked all of my classes, they liked the fact that I put the onus on them. They liked the research. They liked the fact, they thought it was easy. So if you think it's hard, to them it's very easy. They're from a different generation, especially from my generation. I know we got a lot of young teachers who are way more savvy with technology than I. But they were very creative, as you saw, and that's just a fraction of what the kids did. And I think, like Amanda said, when you do the research, you always remember. I saw Chris Salvaggio today and Emily Fox. They were in my classroom, and they were like, "Oh, Mr. Ruggiero, you did those presentations." And they remembered from a couple years ago exactly what they did. So it's good stuff. The dislikes was presenting. They hated getting up in front of the kids. And one of the things I told them before the whole unit was, you know, when you get to college, you got to public speak. And I think it's good practice. And I help them. If they weren't comfortable in the front of the room, I help them. I kind of set their minds at ease in regards to that. So that's it.
You said this was for an AP class?
Yes.
Is there a way for the regular U.S. history students to download this and use it as a study tool
absolutely.
for the exam?
It's all up on the library page.
Anybody can use it as a study guide.
Yeah, it's under U.S. history library page.
Awesome.
In my regular, I teach with Susan Hillenbrand, and our kids are actually doing a very similar project. So they're actually just getting to the unit. They're about a unit behind in Regents as far as the AP goes. And my heterogeneous classroom with Susan tomorrow starts almost the same project. So we're using the computers in the classroom.
All right, so speaking of questions, that was a great question. All right, as usual, I'm going to do Lobster again to show a different way that this can be utilized.
I'll do it quick. So for ELA, I'm on the 3rd unit in Oakdale, and we're doing research. So I was going to use Prezi. Claudia's like, oh no, try this, of course. So I did. So I'll show you the back end because Ruggs' students did an awesome job with the actual from an organizational standpoint as a teacher, and like Ruggs said, having a little bit of control or having that view of what's going on in your classes. Lobster's nice because it allows you to actually break up your classes. I can see students, my whole group, and then I can actually organize any student from Arcadia into my class. So right now I have 4 sections of English. I have English 10 and English 12. So I have it all divided up. And if I click on one of my courses, I can go down, and on the right-hand side are all my classmates, most of the kids in my class, and I can show them. What I found useful is over the break, getting an idea or temperature of where the kids were at and actually completing their presentations, because I wanted them to start presenting right away. And as I went in and checked their work, I could tell we needed another day to finish up and tweak. So So it's great. So, and the kids have liked it. It's been really user-friendly, really easy. They picked it up. A couple of them had used it before with Claudine and a couple other teachers, but it's been really good. So from that standpoint, I got from the back end. Yeah.
Have they improved? And every time I tried to use this with a larger group, it crashed. I mean, every single
I didn't have it crash at all. And I do have a couple of large class, like I have a 30 class, and we didn't have any
So
problems.
maybe they're alleviating some of the
So it's
problems.
been pretty good.
Okay.
And I don't know, it's been great.
Okay, good.
And they're using it to present. I'm trying to get them away from the dependency on what's on the screen. So Blogster's nice because the poster shows the heading or the main idea of what they're going to talk about, but you actually have to scroll through, so they're talking a little bit more, hopefully.
So you can bring up one of the unfinished.
Yep, I can show you now.
So it's a presentation tool?
Yep, it's presentation, interactive poster, same as what Rob had his
Okay.
one group doing.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll show you. So Gabby's pretty close. So I can access the student's account. It's private. She's saying it's finished, so I can tell if the student thinks it's done, right? And I can give them feedback.
Remember back in November, we voted on something that passed statewide, so there is money coming from the state to improve Wi-Fi and stuff like that.
And it'll
it's
take
problem.
3 years, unfortunately, but, and it's probably going to take that long.
That's okay.
Big multimedia, so they load slower.
But if it does pull up, you can see Mike has organized it a little bit differently than Rug, so that all the information, they actually have a scroll bar. So the person who's visual or looking at the poster doesn't see all of the text. They're talking to it more.
You can get them feedback via this, or?
No.
Okay,
Just one-on-one.
okay.
It'd be nice.
That can be
Right?
their next step.
All right?
Yeah.
So the